And for the couple of superintendents that just joined us, just a reminder, today's webinar will be recorded. And if you'd be so kind as to please type your name, your position, and your district in the chat, that would be super helpful. And with that, Tim, take it away.
Yeah, welcome everybody. And I know a lot of you guys are really busy. So today's first meeting will probably go about 30, 40 minutes. We're trying to get down to work between ACSA, SSDA, CDE, Office of Emergency Services, and also CSSA. Just try to get some regular communication to you, touch base to help you get through all this. And we brought together a great group for you to give you some quick updates, some tips, and then feel free to use the chat if you have any specific questions. But our goal today is just to kind of get this started and then have you fill out your survey and come back with any questions. You'll have everybody's email now to talk. So that's the core purpose. I want to introduce Mary McNeil from Superintendent down in Needles, and also my partner in crime, supporting all the small districts in California through ACSA. And Mary, thanks for hosting this and your Zoom. Really appreciate it, and welcome.
Thank you.
You know, Mary and I talked about our objectives for this, and the bottom line is to clearly communicate, get you the resources that great county offices like Butte and Sonoma have put together through, unfortunately, through a lot of experience. They've had multiple fires, and they've got some great stuff to share with you. And then also help Juan out at CDE and Lynn at OES to help. They can't deal with 110 districts all at once. That's too much. So this might be a great forum for us to work with all of you. So Mary, do you want to add anything else, or you want to get moving?
No, I want to get moving, but I just want to welcome everyone. And as the chair of the ACSA Small School District Committee, we just feel that the recognition and the support that we could lend to each other as 60% of the school districts in California, that our concerns are viable, and we wanted a network to be able to share these concerns. So thank you all for coming. We plan to continue these every Thursday at 7:30 for a while. I'd like to say there's no need for further meetings, but we're not at that. We're not there yet. So soon. So thank you for coming.
Correct. Great. Well, listen, let's start with Steve Harrington. And Steve, you've been so helpful for so many people through the years, and I know you've been dealing with so many fires, and you know, I think we all get tired of our thoughts and prayers are with you, but I think you have some really good information, you know, to share with these leaders about what they're going to be going through and the intensity that they currently have and will continue to have. So Steve, welcome, and thanks for being here again.
Thanks, Tim. And I want to thank the associations for hosting this, because it didn't exist in 2017 when we started our first major catastrophic fire. And but we have learned a lot of lessons over these last 3 or 4 years. For us in Sonoma County, we've had 4 major fires in 3 years, all federal disaster fires. And we've had now a total of 7,000 homes lost, $8 billion in property damage accumulated. And let me tell you, it doesn't stop. The first fire, any fire you deal with, will take you 18 to 22 months to close it out. And then you're dealing with it for multiple years as it relates to the social emotional trauma for students. So the reality check here is you will be dealing with this for some time. One of the things we have learned since we have had 4 fires and a flood in between those fires is that we do a narrative on each file, just because the federal government will come back in under FEMA and audit you. They have up to 10 years to audit you. And you may not be there in 10 years, and the records may not be completed. So I would really and strongly encourage you to develop a fire file, it's a tongue twister, and put in the narrative, identify the contacts, identify the people you worked with, identify the time and place in which the fire occurred and when the fire went out, and make sure you have job descriptions for every one of the people you're making a claim on with the federal government. Those things will be important because they, as I said, I've gone through multiple fires and I'm going through audits of those fires, some of them. So those things are all important. The reality is you will get a claim for what they overpaid you, and then you have to negotiate backwards from that. It's not much different, and Juan's on this call, so it's not much different than closing out a project with school construction. You have to always identify your expenses, and then you have to validate your expenses. So that's going to happen with you. The one other thing I would like you to really consider is consider your county office of education. Most of our counties have developed a resource book of how to deal with a natural disaster. And the county has, for certain contexts and responsibilities, it will connect you with. So if you don't know of this situation or this resource, I would tell you to check in with CSSA, and they have what the district should do, what the county should do, what the state should do. So it sort of gives you an overview, and that's on the CSSA website. So check on that. That's the County Superintendent's Association. The other thing is, and CDE will make available to you, are resource grants that are available for social emotional counseling. We have 3 grants in place right now, one for a flood, one for a fire. So those things are important, because now in my own county office, I've just expanded my own division of special ed to include behavioral health. Because of these traumas, you will be dealing with behavioral health issues with your students and your districts and your teachers and your administrators. So those are some things to consider. We have realized that it's necessary. And unfortunately, you will have a loss in student enrollment. And that student enrollment will not necessarily return right away. We're, I think, the second fastest losing county in the state, and that's because of our multiple fires and disasters. So to go from 72,000 students to 68,500 is a pretty big drop, and it's because of that situation. So you need to prepare your boards and your districts that things will not come back right away. It will take time to rebuild. And then I would also like to just let you know that as you're working on these situations, you have to deal with the regular education program and with the pandemic and all the other things. So my heart goes out to every one of you. We're dealing with it currently. Our last fire just ended, as I said, last week, was the glass fire, and that was closed out. But after multiple fires, multiple districts, we lost close to 1,000 days of instruction since 2017 between 40 school districts. So and then we have the pandemic. So you want to talk about learning loss, you need to prepare your community. There will be learning loss occurring. And if those of you that have still dealing with fires and students in shelters, remember that you have McKinney-Vento funds. Those children that have all been displaced are homeless. Even if they're relocated, they're homeless. So please use your resources. So feel free to call on my county office. We have gone out to help other counties in the relationship for social emotional counseling for teachers and staff. We have a whole program that we do for districts to how to deal with student trauma. And we are not afraid to be called on. And we cover that cost because we just feel it's our payback for those who came forward to us. So Tim, that's where I see the reality of all this now. In my perspective, this is my 38th year as a superintendent, continuous service, and the last 3 or 4 have been the most challenging in my whole career.
Yeah, I really appreciate all the resources you always provide. I think the big question, and maybe we do this more at length in a separate meeting, but everyone's struggling with the FEMA work, getting the right people to do that. You know, you need the mentality of a really, kind of a Title I mentality on that. Any suggestions? I know maybe we can ask you and Butte County maybe to come back next week and really help them with that FEMA stuff, because everybody's struggling about what to spend, what to market, and they've been a little slow on the workshops statewide to help these folks.
Well, we've secured a FEMA consultant, and I think I gave that name to Mary as well.
Well, that's right.
And because my feeling was the districts don't have the resources to do this. So as a county office, we brought in the FEMA consultant. We did the FEMA orientation on how to fill your paperwork out. Oh. We had it reviewed by a consultant. To me, it was affordable and reasonable. And Mary and I both have the contacts on those consultants, and we would be happy to share them with any district. But really, coordinate with your county office, because one of the things is it's a nominal cost to a county office to get the consultant and then basically provide the services to districts. And I know Mary did some of the same things because they don't have the resources. So we have little districts in Sonoma. Yeah. I have 40 school districts. So I have one with 10 kids in it. I have one with 20,000 in it. So it's a big difference. But you have to help them all out in this situation.
Yeah. I forgot about that consultant. That's a great tip. He knows everything. That's great. Well, hey, let's switch over to Mary Sakuma at Butte. And Mary, been so impressed with all the work that you guys put together around the mental health and your resources that you provide, and your team's done such a magical job. So why don't you get, I think that's a ongoing question everyone has is, where can we get more resources for trauma and mental health?
Well, good morning, and thank you, Tim. Good morning, everyone. It's really nice to be here and have an opportunity to talk with you about this. I'd just like to echo what Dr. Harrington said, that we really are here to be of support to all of you in any way that we can. Unfortunately, like Sonoma, we have experienced multiple traumas over the past few years. When Tim Taylor was superintendent in Butte County, we had, of course, the evacuation due to the dam disaster, and then the devastating Camp Fire just a few weeks before I took office. So, and in between, lots of other smaller fires, and then most recently, the Bear Fire, also known as the North Complex Fire West, that once again ripped through one of our tiny communities and destroyed a school. So we've had multiple losses of schools and communities over the past few years. And of course, the mental health supports that Dr. Harrington talked about are really very, very important, both in the short term and the long term. One of the things I think is important to know for those of you who are really just now moving into the recovery phase is that initially, it's important to remember that the staff and the adults really need a lot more support than we might think. You know, our first thought, of course, goes to our students. But remember that the staff, oftentimes they are the victims trying to help victims. And so providing them with a lot of training and support, and as well as their own counseling wherever needed, is critically important. One of the things that I thought would be important to share with you is to talk about how you can leverage the dollars to provide the type of support that you need to provide. And so although the monies won't be as large as they've been in the past, according to our friend Leslie Taylor, hi Leslie, shout out to Leslie, who's been a great support during this disaster, and of course Juan, who's just been absolutely rock solid there for us for the past few years. But Project Serve and Restart are funds that, federal funds that you would be able to access. And I want to talk a little bit about when you're writing to the, it's really important that you request for support in multiple areas. So first thing would be to talk about the broad overarching types of supports that you need, such as, you know, your district and county-wide trainings and workshops and accessing outside experts and consultants. And don't be afraid here to ask for large dollar amounts, because although at the beginning of, for example, the Camp Fire disaster, when we started writing to that and asked for large dollar amounts, at the time it seemed like that was just really a big, big ask. But in reality, we have found that we needed that level of resources and then some. And it, as Dr. Harrington pointed out, it's not just for the first 6 months or the first year, it really is ongoing. And I'm going to talk in a few minutes about the fact that the moment that students and families and staff even smell smoke, it oftentimes triggers that trauma that they've experienced in the past. So get ready, it's a long-term process. You're also going to want to consider offsetting some of the costs for your district and countywide school counselors and school psychologists to be repurposed for to support the mental health needs of the students. So you might look at and say, okay, 20% of their time for the next year to 2 years will be devoted specifically to those types of mental health supports. And you're also going to need some case management and additional supports for your homeless and foster youth. As Dr. Harrington pointed out, any student who's displaced due to a disaster is considered homeless and is going to need those kinds of additional supports. And you're probably going to need additional personnel. And then you, of course, want to take a look at new positions for mental health counselors. And it can be very, very difficult to find people. One of the things that Sonoma County under Dr. Harrington's leadership did that was so generous for us is immediately sent some people who had really led the way in their county to consult with the people who were leading the way in our county to really kind of help us get our minds around it. And one of the things that we were able to do is we were able to access retired counselors from around the North State. And when I say around the North State, I'm not just talking about, you know, Butte County or Shasta County. I'm talking, we really reached out far and wide. We had, for a while, we had people coming in 3 days a week, living with a colleague in Butte County for that 3 days a week while they're working, and then returning to their home county from, you know, 200, 300, 400 miles away. But part of it was the fact that they felt so passionately about what we were trying to do, and they felt like a member of the team. At our highest point, I think we had about 40 part-time counselors who were being sent out to districts all around the county to provide those kinds of supports. Then it's really important that you check in with your local behavioral health agency and see if they have partners that they work with who have a requirement as part of some of their ongoing grants to give back to the community. And although that may not be a huge resource, it's one that's really important to tap, both for meeting the needs that you have, but also for them to feel like they're a part of the school's recovery. At one point, we were able to receive about $200,000 from one of our public agencies who, again, needed to do this as part of their ongoing grant delivery model. And then you will want to try to figure out how to really leverage that Serve and Restart grant through your local nonprofits. You know, they're going to want to know that you are accessing the maximum that you can access through any kind of governmental related grants, but then of course they want to help you as well. And of course we had a huge outpouring of very generous donations during the campfire and post campfire, and those funds have been leveraged with a variety of different types of agencies as well as private donors, and always going back to ask you know, for additional funding, particularly when you've been able to demonstrate that you're doing a really good job with these supports, is critically important. Never hesitate to go back and say, our work is ongoing. How can we partner and continue this good work? You're going to need somebody who is at administrative level to make sure that they're coordinating all of these services as well. And then always reach out to our friends at CDE. As I mentioned, Leslie Taylor has been really great, joining us every week for our Butte County Office of Education Emergency Operations Centers meetings. And, you know, when we talk with her about our unmet needs, she really gets creative about finding ways to make those needs known. And that, together with developing a relationship with your Cal OES liaison, is critically important. A couple of things just to round this out. Your local universities and community colleges also are a great resource, and don't hesitate to reach out to their various leadership, even in areas that you might not really think about. So for example, child development is an area where often there are experts who know and understand how to respond to the needs of young children. And that has been critically important in our work here, and they have provided many trainings and workshops, all free, to our community and to our school leaders. And so really important to enhance your partnerships there. And then finally, Dr. Schoenfeld, who is with the National Center for School Crisis and Bereavement, was a tremendous help to us. When I finish here, I'll go ahead and put in the chat a way that you can do an outreach to that crisis center, and they were tremendously helpful and very supportive. So I just want to again extend to all of you, you know, my own sadness for you with what you're having to experience, but I also want to encourage you to really reach out, be proactive, don't stop asking for help. Your needs are critically important, and it's important to know that when you reach out to a state or federal agency and the first answer is no, never take that as the final answer, because your kids need your support, your staff needs your support, and it's worth it to be their advocate. Thanks, everyone.
Great job, Mary. You know what? A good example of that, Toby Waits here from Big Creek had a terrible situation up there, but he called me and said, Tim, my psych needs help. My psych has got to do work with 2 different districts. So we hooked them up with Mary's trauma team, and they really got her squared away, because a lot of these psychologists have not dealt with something of this intensity, right? If they're used to school site trauma, a death of a kid, a suicide or something. This is a community-wide issue. So, you know, Toby showed great leadership, asking and being relentless about it, and then Mary's team stepped up. Before I leave Steve and Mary, Steve, I'll put you on the hot seat. I know at the county office, we're always flush with all this money, but these poor people are small districts, so they're afraid to ask. When you say ask for more, Mary, I know some of the leaders here, they're like, are you sure? Are you sure? Should I ask? You know, so Steve, you got to tell them, that's difficult for a small district leader because they don't have a ton. And I've been trying to give them some samples of what to ask for, but could you help them a little on that to make sure they're properly staffed to deal with that 18 to 22 months?
Well, first of all, you should be asking your county for support as it relates to doing your FEMA forms and applications.
Okay.
That's in our guidebook for CSSA, that we should be a resource for them for that. And if you're getting some pushback, I don't mind calling a county superintendent and saying, well, come on here. You know, let's be real. It's a small cost for you to pay to help a district, and it's only a short-term cost. So really the districts don't have the resources and the bureaucracy to do this paperwork. And it is a paperwork. And so we provided it. And I think, Mary, you provided it too to your districts. So that's the first thing. If the CSSA resource book will tell you exactly the types of pressures you can put on other agencies and what services they're expected to do. It identifies what Cal OES will do. And I see in the chat, somebody doesn't know who their local OES it's your Office of Emergency Services within your county has a designated representative for schools. And you should find out who that person is in your local county as a resource to get support from your local Board of Supervisors. Our Board of Supervisors, because our fire was started by PG&E, we're now getting money 3 years later from PG&E for their settlement costs. Mm-hmm. So it does come back to you, and I'm using it to offset my expenses for consultants. And I also took, and I know Mary took the same approach, I just didn't serve our districts that are public schools. We serve all students in our counties. We are elected officials. Therefore, we coordinated with private schools, public schools, and charter schools, everybody. We lost 6 schools in these last 3 years, or portions of schools. And the toxic waste and the abatement and all those things. Call on your county for resources as it relates to facility. You don't have the facility staff if you're a small district to cover some of these resources. So, and we have a little greater liberty than a district because on contracting and some other things that a district doesn't have that they have to comply with. So I really tell you to look at your county. I know I've been in contact with Santa Cruz County and giving resources to them what to do because we're in Northern California. And Dr. Schoenfeld, as Mary has said, he was instrumental, and that's nothing, it didn't cost us. I don't think it cost Mary either. It's paid for Hartford Insurance Company. And he trains through their foundation, and he trains the leaders of leaders, counselors of counselors to work with your community. So these things are available to you. And of course, coordinating your donations is very important. We closed out our last donation account a year ago. Now we're starting another donation account for new fires, but we've been putting it all into therapy, art therapy, things that can come back into a school because districts don't have them. Districts of first service are all of those that were victimized. They get the therapy services first, but we try to spread it around the whole county because remember, teachers live in more than one district. Students live in more than one district. Mm-hmm. And when you lose schools and you lose close to 7,000 homes, you have staff on your own. And Mary, I'm sure, had the same thing. We had our own staff that was hurting. So dedicate staff in your own organization to support your teachers and your counselors and your classified staff. Remember CTA, SEIU, that's who's our classified, CSEA, they all have resources. In fact, ACSA does. And we got our administrators who lost houses support because that's important. And that's belonging to these organizations are beneficial and they don't cost you anything. It's aligning resources to services.
Great tip. And I think, we need to move on to CDE. Again, I think one of the things we all learn, and a few of you have done it, some of you have not, you don't have time to principal your school. You're going to have to you're going to have to bring in a retired person to help you coordinate this. I was impressed. Toby brought somebody in right away to help run the school stuff while he goes out and hustles resources and that. So I can't emphasize that enough. I know some of you are short staffed, but you really, it's like doing, like Steve says, if you're depending on how deep your issues are, it is like doing a big facilities project. Trying to be a superintendent principal and being the superhero is going to be very taxing. Plus, you'll miss out on hundreds of thousands of dollars, I think, if you're not laser focused on getting those resources Steve and Mary are talking about. Okay, Juan, so we're going to switch over to you and Leslie. And again, thanks for all your support. You're doing Superman work, and welcome. And why don't you give us a quick update on CDE?
Thanks, Tim. First of all, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to also be part of this, lineup. We've been working with amazing leaders over the last several years with you, with Mary, with Steve, and I have to say that again. These have been true leaders that have been there to support their counties, their school districts through a lot of unknowns, a lot of challenges that they've never faced before. They did an amazing job. So it's great to be able to hear from them directly in terms of what they've learned and tips that they would give all of you. We at the state level, just like the County Office of Ed, we're partners. We're partners with you at the state level to help you be able to elevate your unmet needs. We continue to work very closely with our partners at Cal OES. You're going to hear from Lynn a little bit later today. But, we want to make sure that the school's voice is heard here at the state in Sacramento when coordination is happening around emergencies and wildfires, pandemics, whatever the emergency may be. We continue to work with many of you. Like you mentioned, Tim, this year has just been different. We have so many different wildfires throughout the state, and we've been trying to reach out to as many as possible to make sure that we know what your unmet needs are. We appreciate this opportunity to once again reach out to others that we may not have heard from. So I'm really interested to hearing from you to see if you have any unmet needs as you go through the process. We do have some updates that I'll just mention briefly. Again, I want to keep my comments brief because I want to hear from all of you. This year is different, in terms of 2021, in terms of funding and instructional time. And I do want to mention that we have a lot of great FAQs on our website, on our principal apportionment website. I'm not going to go through the FAQs specifically, but I want to make sure that you guys are aware because there's a lot of questions about this year and what to submit in terms of J13As for things like school closures or instructional minutes. So please take a look at that website. We do have with us Wendy from our School Fiscal Services team here as well to answer more specific questions. But the overall message is that, we're here to help and we're trying to help do what we can to make sure that your needs are being met. So we appreciate this opportunity to be with you here today.
Great. And Leslie, just one quick question. I heard that you meet weekly with Butte County. Is that something you recommend with other counties depending on the level of need? That seems to be like an easy drop zone for you and effective.
Yeah, I think it's helpful to have a regular touch point with the impacted counties. I think something that's working really well in Butte is that they have their own kind of emergency operations center model. They have clearly defined roles for that meeting. Everyone knows what to expect, how to share, when to share. I mean, I feel that it's an honor to be in that space, you know, with the folks who are impacted on the ground and to watch how they are acting in service of the impacted LEAs in their county. Fresno County is doing a similar model. So it is something that I would recommend.
Great. Thank you so much.
Hey,
Let's
Tim,
switch. Yeah, Corey.
before we switch over, Derek Cooper had a question that he asked if they could elaborate on support for teachers. Derek, if you want to take yourself off mute and ask your question, I just want to make sure it gets answered.
Well, that's great. Thank you for giving me the time. It's exactly that. I mean, he's asking, you know, Dr. Harrington, this is incredible information. This is kind of like the first time I'm hearing it. The Slater fire came through. I don't know, you know, how many of you know that, but about half my teachers and half my teachers and about half my students lost their homes. So like I told Tim, I'm going to be reviewing this, you know, this call quite a bit just to kind of get it in my head. But right now it's definitely focusing on student counseling, mental health, as well as I am now seeing it for, you know, through my teachers. As I stated, I have 3 parapros out of my 7 parapros out today, and, you know, with either headaches or just stress. And my teachers are just kind of trying to pull it together.
Yeah, again, Derek, I think you're asking the right questions. And again, I would, I don't know if you have a lead psych from Siskiyou County helping you. If you do, I would hook them up with one of Steve or Mary's top dogs, because they've got it down and they can really help you from a distance, or help your psych. So if you have a name of a psych, we'll hook you up with that. And again, I think Steve's right. You got to think bigger about that mental health support. And we know that you lack staffing. That's a big problem, but maybe with Zoom, that can be a solution for you. If you got internet, I can't even remember if did you get your internet back?
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. That's good. So yeah, so keep asking those questions. And again, Mary and Steve can pick up the call and get some of their people to help you out to coach somebody. Great. Hey, let's switch over to Lynn Olson. Thanks for being here this morning and for all that you do statewide. Looking forward to hearing a quick update from you.
All right. Thank you very much, Tim. And I am, again, so sorry that we are here again. It's been a very busy past couple of years with all of the fires and disasters in California. I'd first like to start off by promoting the state standardized emergency management system. Steve Harrington and Mary should know that very well by now, and that's how the state manages and controls disasters. And as part of that, you have what's called an operational area. I noticed there was a question in there about what their OES representatives are. Your operational area, which is your county OES, they are your conduit for everything as it relates to recovery, because all of the decisions are being made locally. At the local level, you have a recovery coordinator. If you do not know who that is, you should reach out and get a hold of them. If you can't figure that out, let us know. We'll help you make those connections. They're the ones that are working. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but your speech is coming out really like robotic.
Oh.
Like it sounds like you're breaking up real bad. I don't know if it's your microphone or your connection, but some people are saying they're having a hard time understanding you. I don't know if there's anything you might be able to fix real quick.
Is this better?
No, it's still pretty bad.
I don't know how to fix it. It usually works fine. I do have a bit of a cold, so I don't know if that's the problem.
No, this is definitely technology.
Yeah, that sounds gargly.
I'm sorry, I don't know what to do to fix that then.
Okay. Well, you know what you could do is maybe if you get in the chat room, maybe give us a couple of your highlights, because really it's really gargly. It's hard to hear, and we really do need to hear from you too. But I understand if it must be some technology deal. Blame needles. Everything's about needles.
All right, well, I'm sorry about that. Is this any better if I talk louder?
No, unfortunately. Mary McNeil just suggested maybe you could try calling in instead, because it just might be the audio if you're going through your computer.
All right, well, give me a few minutes and I will do that.
Sure
Great.
thing.
Well, while Lynn calls back in, I think maybe, and I wasn't going to do this, but because I didn't have any people, I think maybe quickly go around the horn and introduce yourself, what district you're in, and maybe if you have a question, why don't you throw it at us? Toby, you're never shy. Why don't you introduce yourself? We'll start with you. And good to see you, Toby.
Hey, Tim, good morning. No, Toby Waite from Big Creek Elementary School. We are the Creek Fire. So the Creek Fire started right outside my front door and has quickly grown into California's single largest wildfire. The one suggestion, Tim, and I know we're introducing ourselves, but I think, Steve, the handbook that you sent out from CSSA was fabulous. Every county office of education is different. And there's 58 counties and you have 58 politicians. And what I've learned through the years, what every first term politician wants is a second term. So a lot of our politicians are not willing to kick the hornet's nest because it doesn't help them get reelected to the second term. Nothing about my county. I'm just saying, speaking in general terms. But all the resources I'm starting to pick up here in the chat room, it would be nice at the state level if all this was already compiled and every rural district, it doesn't matter rural or urban, it doesn't matter. This should be the go-to book. I mean, I said this at my county, and I may have ruffled some feathers a few weeks ago, but I don't really care at this point. But having what Steve put together, the after the event checklist, this would have been very useful 7 weeks ago when this fire first broke out. My community is just populated 7 weeks after the fire. We're over 50 days. We will not have internet or phone lines. We'll have it in January if the stars align, depending upon the snow load. So these resources that I'm now seeing, this would have been incredible to have in a go-to handbook. Hey, if fire breaks out, disaster is in Big Creek, boom, here's the book. Start following the checklist. That would have been absolutely incredible. Having this meeting right now, showing us these resources is incredible. And I think that's what we need to continue to get these. We can compile everything that's been shared in the chat box today and boom, send it out to everyone who received Corey's email to start working from that end.
Great, Toby. And I always appreciate your frankness. Mike Hefner, good to see you. Why don't we go, how you doing over in Santa Cruz? You're looking good.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Mike Hefner, Superintendent Principal for Bonnie Doon Union Elementary School District here in the Santa Cruz Mountains. It's an interesting context here where a very small percentage of our overall county was impacted by this fire, but 100% of my district was. We have about a third of our attendance area either lost their homes or their homes are severely damaged. So that's part of the context we're working in, being so small in relationship to the entire county, but to be so heavily impacted as a district. We're in the repopulation phase. Our school is still standing. We finished all the restoration work, and as families are moving back, we feel like, I'll speak for myself, I feel like everything is very reactionary, that finding out what the needs are and responding is something that's requiring a lot of time. And, I'm hoping that those of you who have been through this before, I hear counseling's an ongoing need, but really trying to understand, how do I get in front of some of these needs so that when Juan calls or, somebody else calls, I know what, I can start anticipating what my asks need to be. And then the other piece that we're really concerned about is impact on funding. We're a basic aid district, and we're concerned about what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years that will impact our school's financial viability.
Steve Harrington, thanks for raising your hand. You're a good student.
Well, I had to deal with funding as well, and I had to work with my state legislators on behalf of my districts to put in a hold harmless clause, and Juan probably knows some more about that too as well. But basically, it was a hold harmless clause for 2 years because it takes about 2 years to rebuild. And I know that once it was accomplished for our county, it was instituted in the next state budget for Butte County.
Yep.
And then, of course, they went retro and took care of Lake County from the year before, 2016, because they had lost so much. So work with your legislators there at the state level, state senator. When I used to be in Santa Cruz County, it was McPherson, so I don't know who the state senator is now. But you work with them, you ask for that same type of legislation. Work with, we use capital advisors. They were beneficial in getting the language written. Jerry got it developed the language, it's sort of a template now. They put in the budget trailer bill. So work on that now because it will be impacting you for the next 2 to 3 years. I do think they moved it. Juan could probably answer this question. When I did it, it was for a 2-year protection. I think it's now up to 3-year protection. And of course, you're in a protected environment right now. Remember, you're hold harmless right now with the pandemic, but you need to know that it takes 2 more years. So you need to cover for 22, 23, those school years. That's what's going to hurt you.
Yeah, Stephen, I really appreciate you guys putting that link. We just copied it and it went through. But capital advisors, ACSA's, Laura from ACSA is on top of this, and so is CASBO. Their pens are ready. I think the thing is we got to see what districts are in need of this, right? Because that's why we're reaching out, and Juan gave me all the districts that we can find. So if you could talk to some of your colleagues too. And remember, it's not just like Steve says, within your county, you could have staff or students that lived inter-district, whatever. So it's not just the districts that are most impacted, it's some of the outlying ones too that should need some help. So we will move that forward with ACSA, capital advisors, CASBO, and bring CSES involved with that. So the lobbyists are on it, the advocates are on it, and we'll start with capital advisors, and then they'll share it with the other ones. So because this is a big one. This isn't, one of the things is the campfire was the only show in town that year, so it was a more laser focus for everybody to help with resources. You guys are so spread out from north, south, east, and west. But thanks, Mike. That's a very big issue, and we will definitely work with you, and you got to work with your local legislators to be co-authors. Everybody wants to be a co-author on that one, but the guy from Sonoma, McGuire, was kind of on the forefront of all this for us to push it through. Thanks,
Jerry
Steve.
Shelton wrote it at Capital Advisors and gave the language, so
Great.
we have the template for it.
Okay. Let's go back to Lynn. Lynn, thanks for calling in. Let's see if we can hear you. There she is.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right.
That's a commercial.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I'm up here in the country, so maybe it's the bandwidth or the number of people on the call. But anyway, I apologize for that.
No problem.
What I wanted to say is, again, I'm very sorry that we're in this position again after all these years of disasters. And I would like to first do a plug for California Standardized Emergency Management System. Mary and Steve probably know that very well by now, but basically what that means, and I think Steve had already mentioned that each one of your counties is what we call an operational area, and all the decisions that are being made for recovery are being made at your county level. Your county is in charge of recovery. So if you do not know who your county recovery coordinator is, you can reach out to OES, or you can reach out to us, and we will connect you with the people that you need to be working with. And as Steve had mentioned too, we look at the county offices of ed to help the public schools and charter schools as they go through the recovery process as well. The second thing is that the Joint field office, which we call the JFO, is now up and running, and that is where our state and federal partners are working together to support recovery in each one of the counties. And as you hopefully know, that schools are a priority for recovery. I was just reading the incident action plan this morning, and again, it states how schools are a priority for recovery. Luckily, we didn't have too many schools that were damaged or destroyed. It's mostly the communities around the schools that are going through the debris removal process. The household hazardous waste operations are ongoing. It is the first step in debris removal. So once they remove all of the household hazardous waste from each one of the sites, then they can start going in and doing the cleanup. One of the things that Dr. Harrington mentioned again was about FEMA public assistance. I put in the chat room the link to the Federal Public Assistance Program and Policy Guide, which we affectionately call the Papa G. I would recommend that you download that immediately and start reading through it. It tells you how to, the rules for federal reimbursement, and it's a very good guidance on recovery. Even if it was a locally declared disaster or a state-only declared disaster, it's good to follow the Papa G, especially for procurement. They have a lot of procurement rules. And as Dr. Harrington also mentioned, document every decision that you make in your meetings, because they will come back 10 years from now to do an audit and expect you to return money if they so deem it necessary. If you need assistance, please feel free to reach out to Juan or Leslie or myself. We can help connect you with resources and people at the county level. If you don't think you're getting the attention that you deserve, we can also make some inquiries on your behalf up here at the state and federal level. But basically, we really need you to work with your local recovery folks, because they know what's going on down there on the ground. They are your advocate. They are your voice with both the state, OES, and FEMA in the recovery process. And that's all I have right now. Thank you guys very much. And again, I'm sorry that you're going through this.
Hey, Lynn, thanks for your leadership. You've been so stellar and such a conduit for help. And I hope hope people have questions, do reach out, because really that's what we're there. What's we're doing this for, and trying to move that around. So does anybody else, I know I see, David, do you want to, David Conway, you want to introduce yourself real quick? Oh, I see. There he is.
Hi, I'm David Conway. I'm Director of Fiscal Services in Monrovia.
Yeah.
And we didn't really suffer any fire damage. The only possibility we have is maybe smoke damage for the bad soot and smoke that was raining down on us for a month. So I was just trying to get a baseline of what we might need to be able to do about that.
Yeah, Steve, go ahead, because I think I was going to say, go ahead, Steve.
I was going to just say, just because it's smoke, and remember, the whole air filtration system has to be cleaned, maintained, and you have to disinfect and to reoccupy your school, because when you have a fire of homes, you have toxic waste that lands on the debris, and it creates a debris field and creates dust. So the whole school has to be cleaned, and you have to use FEMA approved cleaners to do this. But I would say, don't be afraid to make a claim, because even though you weren't destroyed or damaged, you are part of the total federal disaster relief grant, and therefore, as within that boundary of the fire, you are eligible to get reimbursement. Now, you won't get it. You can put in your claim, and you will expend your dollars now, and you will have to wait your 18 months to get your start getting your reimbursement checks. But it's the type of thing you should claim for, because the district shouldn't have to bear the total cost.
Thanks, Steve. Absolutely. Hey, Jake Wolf. Thanks. Hey, Jake Wolf, you want to introduce yourself?
Tim, jump in here.
Yeah, Toby. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Toby.
When Steve talks about claims, are these claims above and beyond what our insurance covers?
Yeah.
What would be what are some examples of that? Of what type of claims we'll have not covered by insurance? That's where I am. I have a mix up right now.
Yeah.
So this is Lynn from OES. As Mary and Steve know, your insurance has to be the first payer. So for FEMA, and it's only eligible costs. Not everything is eligible, which is again why you need to work with your recovery coordinator at the local level. But insurance pays first, and anything above and beyond that is where FEMA may be able to reimburse. And it's a 75-25% split. So you're not going to get 100% back. You'd only get 75% back. Unless, of course, they have some sort of special legislation or something going on where they'll give you more. But it's a 75-25% split.
So how do I find who my recovery coordinator is? Is that the info at School Crisis Center?
No, what county are you with?
Fresno County.
Okay, so Ken Austin is your representative. If you Google for the county, your County Office of Emergency Services.
Right,
Ken
and I know.
Austin yeah.
I know Ken. So what is his role in this?
He is the OA coordinator, so he is the one who is coordinating recovery. They should be having a public assistance meeting, applicants briefing for you guys to come in to talk about it. I don't know if they're going to do it virtually or if they're going to do it in person, but he's the one who's going to get you started on the recovery process. Did you have schools damaged or destroyed?
We had quite a bit of school damage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Toby, some people, I've heard some districts have walk around with their coordinator around the school site in the town. Lynn, I don't know if that's an option, but you may want to, you really need to build that relationship with Ken.
I will say one thing, Tim, also, that our insurance covered almost all of our costs, but it was the personnel costs beyond what the insurance would cover, right, for the extra hours and time and evacuation and all those type of things. We used our school buses to evacuate our community, and we had to evacuate over 200,000 people. So we had the largest bus fleet in the whole county. So I think those type of costs were claimed that the insurance didn't necessarily cover on some of those things. The other thing I would tell you is that when you look at making your claim, be ready for the second year, because the second year, guess what happens? Your premiums doubled or your deductible doubled. So that's the reality of a fire. And unfortunately, I don't know if you're in a co-op for insurance, but in our situation, our deductible went from $1 million deductible to a $5 million deductible for schools, because we've been in multiple fires. It's a risk factor they look at.
Thanks for the cold water on our face, Steve. Appreciate it.
But you have to look ahead, and you have to get your boards ready.
I think that's why we think we probably should continue these meetings, because these are great questions and people get more and more as they get out there.
Well, also every board should have passed a resolution, Tim. Remember the resolutions we had every board pass so that you could avoid having to do competitive bidding. Then I had to argue that with FEMA, because FEMA wants everything bid. Well, I said, in the middle of a disaster, you're not going to bid things. Yeah. And so California state law. So our federal House of Representatives member got involved and got them to back off. So you have to learn to use your government officials. But Juan probably could tell you more about the bidding too, because you're going to have to get, if your board has to pass an emergency resolution, your county superintendent has to sign it. It relieves you of some of the competitive bidding stuff.
Wow, good information. Yeah, Jake, you want to introduce yourself? I know you're from CD, but when you get chances.
Yeah, it's very nice to be here. I appreciate everybody's input on everything, and it sounds like there's a wealth of information here. So I am the new Staff Services Manager 1. I work for Joe Anderson and Juan. Joe Anderson was on the call. I believe he had to step off or something. But he is the Staff Services Manager 2, and we are part of the new California Department of Education Emergency Response Team that will be supporting, all of you guys during disasters and trying to really fill that gap that has been there from different responses and recovery efforts that have happened over the past couple of years. So I really appreciate you guys having me today and letting me listen in.
Thanks, Jake.
I apologize, Tim. I should have introduced Joe and Jake earlier. We are extremely excited. Yesterday was our first day you know, this is the first time that we have two dedicated team members here at CDE to focus on emergencies. So they're part of the newly created emergency services team. Again, yesterday was their first day. We are thrilled to have them on board. They're going to be able to help all of us moving forward. So big welcome to Jake and Joe.
Best news.
Hey, Juan.
Juan, now you only have to work 8 days a week instead of 9.
Now, Juan, you did forget to mention that they both came from Cal OES.
Yes.
So Joe comes
Toby,
from
I'd be all over
recovery
that.
side, and Jake used to work for me, so they're both going to be very good resources for you guys.
Listen,
Thank
District,
you.
I'd be
Thank
all over
you.
those. I'd be sending them a 6-pack of Sierra Nevada as fast as you can. That's great news, Juan. Thanks so much. Did I miss anybody? David Conway? Hey, Jeff, what's happening, man? Let's do Jeff from Mariposa. How you doing?
Tim, good, man. How you guys doing? I'm a little late, had some obligations this morning, but just good to be part of a resource like this. So I really appreciate it. You know, I think I'm in my 2nd year, and so I'm still learning, and I'm learning fast. So
yeah,
I really appreciate you putting this together, and just still learning the ins and outs and a lot of good information from this meeting.
You got it, Jeff. Good hearing your voice. David Conway. Did I do David? No. I already did David, yes. Sorry.
Yes, yes, I already talked to you. Yes, thank you.
Sorry, Dave, sorry. Hey, Michael, I always mess up your last name. Michael G., the board member. You want to say hi? I really appreciate the work you've been doing. Michael's he's the board president up in Bonnie Doon, has been doing great stuff, calling me and trying to figure out what a board member can do. And maybe Steve can address that. But thanks, Mike, for being here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Tim, for your leadership in pulling us together. So I'm board president in Bonnie Doon, and I've been working with CSBA and getting in touch with my representatives and just figuring out how to do advocacy, that there's a lane for a board member, for a board president to be effective that's different than the administrator's lane. And I look forward to connecting with any of your board members in this project to get this hold harmless legislation passed.
Yeah. You know, I told Michael, you're elected also, so elected people sometimes have a little bit of a different passport, I guess, to get things done. And really the work you're doing and the relentless work is great. And I highly recommend, if you guys have other board members want to work with Michael, it can't hurt, right? Because CSBA does carry some weight in the state, and give them something to do to help you guys out. So again, thanks for your leadership.
Yeah, you know, it's been surprising. A year ago, I was board president in a tiny little district, and now everyone's returning my calls. Like, they all care. My representatives all care. Even federal representatives care. And I'm seeing that there really is a lane for me to run in, and I would love to support other board members to work in parallel.
Great. Well, thanks so much, and for all the work you're doing. And then I just forgot Wendy, right? Wendy McCaskill.
Hi. Yeah, this is Wendy McCaskill. I'm the Associate Director of the School Fiscal Services Division with CDE, and over the J13A area, instructional time, attendance, and the principal apportionment.
That's who. So you're the one who looks over our J13s. Sure, you see my signature many times. Good to see you, or hear from you, Wendy. Appreciate you being here too. Well, listen, you guys, we will wrap things up. Corey and I will take the resources. We'll start to put them on our website.
Question.
Oh, I'm sorry. What?
A question for Wendy. Since I heard Wendy say she's in charge of J13 requests.
Yes.
Related to the fire, not a cost, but related to the fire, is we closed for 2 days. We closed our district schools for 2 days due to unhealthful air quality. So I'm in the process of taking a J13A to the board to waive the school minutes and school days. Anything Wendy wants to mention about that? Is there anything in particular that she would be looking for if they're approving a J13 for that?
Well, I think the thing for this year is that it's really the days, not the minutes, you know, that you're asking for. And it's as far as a closure for 2 days, it's really straightforward and similar to how it would be done last year. The big difference is that you're not reducing your divisor for those days because you're not reporting ADA. What it does is it insulates you from having an instructional time penalty for not meeting your annual day requirement.
But Wendy, I think you should point out that if they have professional development days in their calendar or any type of emergency days in their calendars, they have to use those first.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, if you have emergency built-in days in your calendar, you should use those first, and what you submit should be the net difference.
We don't have any emergency built-in days in our calendar. We do routinely do professional development.
Do you have a PD day, professional development day? You're supposed to use that as well for a makeup day.
So are we required to reschedule our students to come in on professional development days?
Well, that's what we were required to do. I don't know if Wendy was reading RJ13s for the last couple of years, but they always ask us to use our PD days and our emergency days. And of course, now we're all putting in emergency days in our calendars, and that was a big push to negotiate in. But Wendy, that's the letter we usually get back. It says, please count your professional development days as a
No, it's any days that you have built in where you were planning to provide instruction. So I think they're often termed as snow days. So any days that you had built in that would have been an instructional day for an emergency situation like a snow day. But if you had a day where you weren't, that wasn't an instructional day, that's not the same thing.
Okay. That's not what we were told before.
Question for Wendy. The time frame in filling out a J13, is that imperative that I start right now because we were out 14 days?
It's not imperative that you start right now. So what you'll need it for this year is you'll need it to give to your auditor when they come to do your annual external audit and look at your instructional days. And that doesn't happen until, months from now at the earliest. So I think they oftentimes start coming out in the spring, the auditors.
Okay, yeah, because my question was, snow season is coming and we do have 2 snow days, but we're going to probably use those up. So I should wait, until my auditors ask for it or towards the end, or?
Yeah, no, don't wait until the auditors ask for it. I'm saying you just need it, in time. The auditors will ask for it at some point. So if you were to submit it now for the days that you closed due to the fire and you had 2 built-in days, we would probably give you the net difference. So you say you have 2 and you had 14 days of closure, so you would get approved for 12 and you would have to use those 2 days. And then if you had snow, you would resubmit. So it makes sense to wait until you know what your real needs are.
Okay, so January, February is still okay to hold off for the J13 then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
So Tim just called me. He unfortunately lost internet. So Mary McNeil, if you would like to finish up our webinar today.
Sure. I just want to thank everyone for participating, and we will be meeting again, anyone interested, next Thursday at 7:30 on this same Zoom link. We will be sending that out again to you. So bring questions with you and solutions as we heard today, and just thank you all for really coming together to provide some support. And there's so many times we don't even know the questions to ask. So it's just, your time is very much appreciated, and I look forward to seeing you next Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.